Hey everybody, it's Steve Garvin. I'm here with Jennifer Dunham.
Hi.
I'm excited to be speaking with Jennifer because we actually kind of run parallel with what we're all about. Um, Jennifer is a time, money, and happiness coach. She's also someone who has been running an information systems business for the last 20 years.
Crazy, right?
Right. So, Jennifer knows what she's talking about. And a couple of other things to add to her resume. She is a tiny habit certified coach and a cash injection specialist. And also really like kind of the personal side in that when Jennifer is not at work, she is out hiking or spending time with her two cats, Velcro and Zipper.
I love that.
Two fun names.
And our 30 plus chickens. We live on a small chicken farm.
30 chickens. Now, do you name your chickens or?
My husband doesn't like it, but yeah.
Oh, really?
Every single one. He's like, we live on a farm. It's a working farm. You shouldn't name them. Because, of course, then I get sad and I get attached. And we have some old ones. We have like 5 of them that are more than almost 8 years old, which is really old for a chicken.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's because I'm a good chicken mama.
So do they lay or are they?
They're all well, when they get that old, no, they're retirees at that point. They're just pretty much eating your feed at that point.
Okay.
But yeah, all of our chickens are egg layers. We have 2 roosters, but otherwise, they're all, their purpose for them is for the eggs.
Okay, cool. Got it. Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I know Steve and I met, it's probably been 4 years, 3 years. I think it's 2005, right?
About 2.5.
Yeah. Was it 2006?
It was
2005.
2016, I think.
I said 2006. I meant 2016. 2015 or 2016. I can't remember, but it's been a while. Yeah. And what I love, too, is our very similar paths, not only with, when we're talking about that kind of like the happiness and the fulfillment side, but is also just kind of like that techie, geeky, IT background, as well as I know your love of photography as well. So there's just so many similarities. And so, it was really great to be able to come on tonight and talk to you guys a little bit about some habits and routines and how it plays into happiness.
Well, excellent. So why don't you tell us more about that? How does all these activities fit together?
Sure. Well, with my company, Time, Money, and Happiness Matters, the whole point being, is that most people think of happiness as an afterthought, and, where I'll lose 10 pounds and then I'll be happy, or let me get that raise and then I'll be happy, or that next big contract and then I'll be happy. Right. Instead of looking at happiness as an ingredient going into the success of your business. And, and I'm a huge believer in, the fact that it could exponentially elevate the success in your business. So much so that when we first moved out to this chicken farm, now I've named it. Now it's called your profitable lifestyle formula, but it's literally one of those geeky it's literally a mathematical formula. And where I talk about the relationship between time, money, and reach, which are very measurable, very tangible things, raised to the exponential power of happiness and impact. And when you start thinking about happiness going into your success, I talk about the fact that you can automate your happiness. Not only can you automate a large portion of other activities through habits and routines, but when you can elevate your happiness daily through like 30 to 60 second little bits throughout the day, it actually, because people always say, Jennifer, you're so bubbly. They call me Happy Farmer Jen, and that I'm a positive person, and they just want to know, how is that, and it's because I intersperse and I sprinkle in all these little happiness moments throughout the day, and I call it brain bliss activation. My left brain side is I studied computer science and mathematics, and specifically in grad school I studied artificial intelligence. So it's all about how the brain works, and in relationship to automation. And so it was just so funny how it comes full circle, and I'm talking about tiny habits and routines, because habit strategies are so important with improving the efficiency of your time, focusing on the things that make you money, and allowing yourself to be happy in the process through this idea of habit strategies. And tiny habits is just one of many strategies. It's my favorite because it's the simplest to implement. Because, some people say that it takes, 21 days to create a habit, 66 days. There's so many different studies. But with tiny habits, you can create a new habit that sticks in as little as 5 days if done correctly. And when you start creating these little tiny habits, and then I start talking about habit stacking, where you just start putting them on top of each other and you create these routines. The whole point being is that the more that you can put into a routine, the more you're automating, which means you're conserving the brain power that you have, because we all have that limited amount of willpower or brain power every day. And you've heard this excuse, like, or you maybe even, I've used this excuse myself, like, oh, I can't work out today, I'm just brain dead. So when you use this brain dead excuse, it's not an excuse, it's a reality. Like, you only have so much brain power during the day. So if you do a lot of creative work and you're spending a lot of your focus in the non-routine times of your day, it means that the more that you can automate in the routine times, it allows you to be more efficient in the non-routine times. So, and that's where, because, with time, money, and happiness, they're so interrelated. Like, the reality is you have to make a certain amount of money to survive as an entrepreneur. So, like when people tell me that happiness can't be bought, I'm like, yeah, you're full of crap. Because if you're not making enough of it, it truly affects your health and your stress and your relationships. So you still have to think about how you're using your time. If you're focusing on making money every day, I always talk about making money every day. I'm kind of like a, how does that make me money today kind of person. And are you, allowing yourself to be happy as you grow your business?
Yeah, I agree. And very much so that they're all very intertwined. It's interesting. So the model that I use is, uses similar ideas, just that, there's the systems orientation, there's a creative orientation, there's the personal, well-being, and then there's the connective piece, and all those things need to be smoothly working in order for the whole thing to work.
Yep, you kind of have to be firing on all cylinders, and that's why I was really attracted to the process that you were describing when you and I have had discussions, because again, it's breaking it down into component pieces, and some of them were very tactical, as opposed to some of them are creative. I mean, there is the left and the right brain, and I think both of them are needed as an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I find happens with, and you probably run into this as well with some of your colleagues and friends, I have had, especially with like my photography studio as well, I have found that I have a lot of creative friends. They're great at creativity. And they really suck in business because they lack that tactical skill to implement. And I'm not sure what the element is exactly. I feel really blessed to kind of be equal, but being able to turn something that, that they can they have this brain child, and they don't have a problem with coming up with these brain childs, but to implement, sometimes they need a little bit more accountability. They need to learn how to make an implemented plan, an implementable plan, to where they can break it down into those bite-sized pieces. A lot of people haven't had the experience of creating like a big, huge project plan. When we talk about these IT project plans that we've been on, I mean, you're talking, year-long projects that are broken down into daily activities. So that doesn't come easy to everybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting, that kind of dichotomy. And that's another thing that you and I share, is that, we've got the left brain, right brain kind of balance. And it's so true about the creative people often struggling with the more regimented or systematic pieces. It's almost like a dirty word. Although it's interesting also that the people who are more regimented and systematic really kind of struggle with the creative side as well. And so,
yep, sometimes they do. And you know what's funny is I've had this conversation, and even with some of my clients, you know, where we probably have some mutual friends that we know that are like this, where they feel that rigidity, like you start talking about habits or structure or routines, and they just like, like they feel like it's going to be a negative factor in how they run their business or how their creative aspects. And it's funny because I had a client who, she wasn't opposed to structure per se. However, when you start talking about, like I talk about how you should have 4 different types of routines throughout your day. You've got your personal routine for waking up. You've got a personal routine for like getting ready for bed. But then you should have a business startup routine and a business close down routine. And a lot of people have this, you know, morning routine. Some people have an evening routine, and hardly anybody has business routines. Some people, yes, but not all. And what I find is for her, you know, she was waking up at 6 a.m. and reaching for her laptop. Like she was working 60 plus, almost pushing 80 hours a week. And, you know, she was making good money. She was, you know, very established entrepreneur, easily $250,000, $300,000, you know, a year. So, you know, really decently good money, a solid 6-figure business. But she also wanted to be enjoying her career. And, you know, when I start talking to people about this concept of a profitable lifestyle, and I share that profitability, yes, there is dollar signs. That is one component of it. But the other part of profitability is, are you enjoying it? Right. So it's your life and your business is that lifestyle. So when she started working with me, we started figuring out what is her unique brilliance. We've, you know, what is it that you can embrace about what are you super good at doing? What clients do you currently have? What offers do you currently have? What kind of projects? Maybe there's some projects that you need to cut, you know, and the idea of cutting dollars scares a lot of people. But by the time, over about the time frame of a year, not only did we implement some of these, it was a leap of faith for her to think, oh my God, what do you mean I'm not going to start working until like 9 a.m., like instead of 6 a.m., right? So don't even pick up your laptop until, you know, you've had a little bit of a morning routine for yourself. And so now she's reading, she's doing some meditation, she does some exercise, and now she's working 30 hours a week and making the same amount of money, which is crazy. And I share this because, again, it was a leap of faith for her to think that structure is actually going to give her that freedom. Now it's just like, yes, structure absolutely equals freedom. But at first, it was more of a leap of faith.
Yeah, and I totally relate. I mean, 2 years ago, about the time we met, I was doing this, you know, virtual summit and, you know, and working crazy hours like I did for most of my career, you know, sun up to way past sundown, you know, and I got this kind of intuitive hit to like slow down, like this image of a turtle showed up, and it's like, that is like the wrong thing to be showing up right now. And so I started to put hard stops in my routine. So I'd stop working at 6 and I'd totally leave the weekends off and so forth. And I'm like, how am I going to get everything done? And what I found is I'm actually way more efficient and effective because of those hard stops rather than, you know, trying to work all the time. Because
it's so true. And once you start kind of putting some of those processes in place, and don't get me wrong, you know, because with Time, Money, and Happiness Matters, is what I'm doing is business development and business development coaching and consulting, helping people grow their business past those 5-figure months or past those 6-figure years, so that, or at least build it consistency. A lot of people might have a 5-figure month, but they're not doing it, you know, monthly consistently, and they know they want to grow their business, but they also need, I mean, to do that, you know, to really grow and scale are two different things. You can grow your business, but if you don't scale it, you're going to be up a creek without a paddle, because you're going to realize, you know, the team support that you need or the automation and the system support that you need isn't going to be there. So, you know, it's more than just putting personal routines in place. I mean, that is one component of it, but that's where the time, money, and happiness comes in, is because really looking at your systems, looking at your, you know, I'm a big, you know, that's where someone else recently was asking me, well, what do you mean tiny habits coach and cash injection specialist? And how the heck do those two things even have anything to do with each other? And what I share with people is these cash injection techniques that I have a program called Dash for Cash. And it's literally exactly what it sounds like. You make as much money as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort as possible. But these campaigns, these cash injection campaigns, are meant to be short-term, like let's inject some cash flow into your business. Mm-hmm. But once you learn them, it's an ability to turn them into a habit, like turn them into part of your routines, to where you have a monthly cash flow plan. And that planning piece, in fact, I think it was just in the last week or two, was one of the topics on one of my Facebook Live trainings, was that planning is often what helps people easily take the action. And by taking more action, they gain more confidence. Right. And so having that cash flow plan, turning it into a habit, that's where the two things come in, is because I always am teaching people you should be doing at least one thing every day that directly relates to bringing money in the door.
Wise words.
Yep.
What exactly, so you touched on tiny habits. Do you have an example of like what a tiny habit might be? Sure.
So a tiny habit, there's kind of a definition, and I can't take credit for the tiny habits. Dr. B.J. Fogg out of Stanford University crafted this concept of tiny habits. And a tiny habit is something that takes, in what he says is 30 seconds. And I kind of, give it a little bit of leeway, 30 to 60 seconds. It has to be something you do daily. It has to be something you want to do, which is really super key. And it has to take like little to almost no motivation or effort. And the reason for that is because when it's small, when it's 30, 60 seconds, motivation and effort usually is really small anyway. But let me give you an example. Let's say that I want to start doing, 25 push-ups every day. And the likelihood of that being longer than 60 seconds is probably pretty great, because I'm not going to crank out 25 push-ups. However, I could commit to the tiny habit that says, as soon as my feet touch the floor in the morning, I will drop down and do one push-up. And I'm just doing one. And there's an ability to anchor a habit. So like, for example, in the example I just gave, is after my feet touch the floor. So it's something that I'm already doing, and I'm anchoring this new habit too. So after my feet touch the floor, I'm going to drop down, do one push-up. And then the key thing with positive psychology as well is that you should always celebrate the effort that you made. So like, if I drop down and at least, even if it wasn't a push-up, I just dropped down onto my knees and thought, I just can't do this today, I still celebrate the fact that I dropped to my knees. Like the celebration step is a step that we all tend to forget. And I think that I did a telesummit. Goodness, I feel like it was longer. Maybe it was just last year, but I feel like it was 2 years ago. But it was called The Dark Side of Success, or Skip the Dark Side of Success. And some of the people that I interviewed on the summit were fantastic, really well-established, entrepreneurs, millionaires, who got to the point. I remember one interview I did with Milana, where she shared with me how she had crossed over the 7-figure mark for the first time ever in her life. And instead of celebrating, which you would think you'd pop open, some champagne or have some chocolate, do something. Her reaction was, oh my God, now I have to, the next thing. Like, what's the next thing? And there was, I had another interview that I did as well, like, where people were just, they just walked away from their business because they realized it had gotten to the point where their business was running them instead of the other way around. And I akin that to the Little Shop of Horrors with the plant Audrey that eats people,
right.
That your business is eating you. And they didn't know. I mean, at that point, it was kind of like a hard, fast, like, I just need to walk away. And if you're not careful with not including the celebration step, it's you risk the burnout, and you risk the business taking over. So that positive solidification is super, super important.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Oftentimes, like on Fridays, like when I'm wrapping up the week, what I encourage people to do is to, celebrate even the little wins, because
Absolutely.
Each step forward is is a step forward.
Well, and I even teach, when I work with my clients, it's so funny. So we start every call with a win. We always share a win. And when my clients always say, well, oh, I don't know if I have anything to share, I don't have a win, I'm like, so let's celebrate a failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like failure, I always tell, and I always, I do this, I forget the character's name on Saturday Night Live. Is it Mary, what's her name that she does? Superstar. That she gets down on her knees, does Superstar. Anyway, but I always tell people, celebrate your failures, because without failing, you can't learn.
Right.
So when people always say, oh, I don't really have any wins to share, I'm like, oh, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you can't think of something that you, like, again, most people think of the win as the positive. You know, let's celebrate a failure. What did you do this week that just sucked?
Mm-hmm.
And let's make that be a celebration.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, part of my end of day routine is to ask 3 questions. What went really well,
Mm-hmm.
what didn't go well or what wasn't fun, and what will I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And probably 99 out of 100 times, the thing that I'm going to do differently is based on what didn't go well. So
Mm-hmm.
the improvement is based on.
That's right.
You know,
it's the learning process. You know, so celebrating those failures is amazing. Yeah.
Plus, it's a lot more positive way of looking at it. So.
Yeah, and you know, when you can put a little positive spin on, you know, looking at it as a celebration, then it doesn't quite feel so bad.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I became a master of Excel by keeping track of what mistakes I was. So I learned like all these crazy, you know, the functions that are like buried down. But it was always, you know, well, that didn't work, and so what happened, and you know, analyzing, figuring out.
Trial and error.
I'm also, I don't remember her name. She was like the first female CEO to cross $1 billion mark. And the question that her dad asked her when she was growing up is, what did you fail at today?
I love that.
You know, as a totally positive, you know, because they did exactly that, celebrated the fact that, you know, that you failed at something. Meaning,
yeah, I love that. In fact, you know what? I might start taking that up as the call on all of my client calls. What did you fail at today? Because we always start with wins. You know, like let's celebrate a win, but let's celebrate what didn't go well today.
Yeah,
I love it.
Because I mean, like we've been saying, you know, that's really where we can see what can be different. What can
absolutely.
What have we tried? What have we made mistakes at? You know, where are we learning and growing? So
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and that's where, you know, again, the idea of this profitable lifestyle formula is really it's a way to make something that might be hard for people to put their hands on. You know, again, to take something as you know, being very efficient with every minute of your day, or understanding how every minute, you know, we all have the same amount of minutes in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, understanding, you know, the idea of cash flow and the idea of happiness and impact and reach and all of that is to put a tactical, tangible way of looking at it so that people can take the action. And I'm all about that imperfect action. In fact, it's at my 3-day event that you and I were talking about is we'll share with everybody here in a second, but my 3-day event, on the last day, people walk away with what I call their imperfect action plan. And the whole point of the imperfect action plan, and again, it comes back to that plan. People are, and part of that is the ability to willing to fail, be willing to learn, but creating that plan, because as soon as you have it on paper, like one of my clients, for example, she wanted to start kind of creating more engagement online. She's got a social media group. She has over 13,000 people on her social media list, but she wasn't engaging with them. And so it was almost kind of starting over, even though she had this, you know, nice size list that she already had. And she was starting a private Facebook group. So it's going through and creating this idea of a content plan of what can I talk about at least once a week in a Facebook Live, or, you know, in your Facebook group, that gives value back to your group. And she never did it, because if you struggle with, what am I going to talk about today? You know, like if you're not planning it out. But so we did like a half day VIP day where we mapped out 6 months worth of like topics. And all of a sudden it became easy for her, you know, because you're not thinking about it. That's the whole point of habits too, is you're not having to think about it. You're just doing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you can put more habits in place, you know, we repeat 40% of what we do every single day. So if you can increase that by 41%, 42%, all that does is allows you to be more efficient with the time that you are not in that routine time.
Yeah, I love the idea that I read in Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness. He's the CEO of Zappos. And what the idea is that if you can make a 1% improvement every day for the course of a year, and it has to be on the same thing, but if you do a 1% improvement every day for a year, it's actually a 3,600% improvement.
Yeah, in fact, there's an, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now to see if I can find the books. There's another book. Dan Harris has a book, and the name, it has the word happiness in it, but the name eludes me at the moment. And his name is Dan Harris. And he also got to the point, and he was a news anchor, and he was talking about kind of the fact, again, is like that 1% difference, and how much it makes a difference in your life.
Yeah. I mean, if you can just move, and the way I think about it, and this really goes back to recovering from depression, was that if I could move, and my accounting background is that I could invest 1% into happiness and remove 1% from the stuff that wasn't making me happy, you know, then I could rebalance, realign my life so that, you know, I had a lot more happiness. And when I started, it looked like an impossible task, but
it's not.
It worked so well. I mean,
yeah, and I just looked it up real quick. Dan Harris's book is called 10% Happier.
10% Happier.
Oh, it was a good book. I liked it.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm kind of a book. I have a bad book collection problem.
I totally hear you. I've got 5 books that I'm reading right now.
Oh, I didn't even get to show you. Did you get to see? I have my first book out. Woo!
Yay!
Yes. It's called Light at the End of the Funnel.
Oh, cool.
Is that funny? That's pretty funny.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Yeah.
So tell us about, you know, how can people find out more about you and
sure.
more about
Yeah. So I do have my 3-day Profitable Lifestyle Live coming up. It's in Sacramento, California, which I know, you know, you're California, so, you know, a lot of your community might be a good fit for. It's September 21st through the 23rd. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I do that specifically because I do attract a lot of people who are still corporate, and this allows them to only have to take 1 day off, you know, from some sort of, you know, career or job. And the whole point of Profitable Lifestyle Live is we become very intentional with the vision of that profitable lifestyle. So very much the vision of your business and your life. We become very intentional with the design of your business, and we actually walk through an exercise I call design mapping, where we start learning how to break down something like an ultimate goal and how to break that down into bite-sized pieces so that you can take that daily action towards that goal. And we also walk away with your imperfect action plan, and it's all about, I do a lot of doing at my 3-day event. It's definitely different than like a big, huge 400-person event. It's, you know, capped out at 40 people. And we have just less than about a week and a half where the early bird window for tickets are still open. So I know that Steve has a link that he's going to be sharing with you guys as part of this post as well. But the really cool thing, and I don't even think I've had a chance to tell you about this yet, Steve, is I've just announced the 3 speakers that I have. One of them is, in fact, you may have met Archana, is coming. I don't know if you remember Archana. She's coming to lead our vision board. We have a vision board gala party on Friday night, Friday evening. And then Saturday, Stephanie Dodds is going to be teaching us about our subconscious saboteurs, the things that are kind of holding us back from the bigger possibility. And then on Sunday, Valerie Del Grosso is my attorney, and she's flying in from Las Vegas, and she's going to be talking about like the 5 different types of people that as an entrepreneur that we're doing business with, and how to protect yourself legally as you grow and scale your business. Which, again, that left side brain of me, I'm, coming from corporate, that's something I naturally do. But again, doesn't come easy for a lot of people. So she's going to be here sharing about that. So that's super exciting. And then the other amazing thing that has kind of developed over the last couple of weeks is this idea of this prize pack. And a lot of my mentors, my coaches, colleagues have contributed to this prize pack. I have tickets to Entrepreneur City Live, VIP tickets to that, which is going to be in November. I have scholarships for like website audits from like Jonathan Christian from We Make Stuff Happen. I have Molly Mahoney's gifted a scholarship for camera confidence for people who want to start getting out there and doing more Facebook Lives. So there's all these programs or courses or tickets to other events, and all of these friends of mine have contributed to this prize pack so that anybody who purchases an early bird ticket is going to get a chance to, I'm going to start drawing as soon as the early bird ticket window closes, which is September 4th. I'm going to close that window, and we're going to start drawing the winners of all of these prizes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sweet deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. I really enjoyed our time together, as always.
Me too. I know we need to do this more often.
Yeah, right. Do you have any parting thoughts you'd like to share before we close up? Sure.
Yeah. If you want to make sure and tag me on this post, I'd love to come in and be able to answer questions if people have any. And that way I'll see your post. But the idea of setting aside the time. One of the things that I know I personally don't do is I don't take the time, and I know, Steve, you are way better at this than I am, but I find that for me to really take the time to be more intentional, even about my own business, for me, I have to pull myself out of my current environment. So like going to an event, going to a retreat, going to a workshop, for me is my thinking time. And so, I share that with you just because I know, like, I have some of my clients, this is the 3rd time they're coming to this event because, some of the exercises I change out, as the events proceed, or as, each time I do this event, but they get so much out of it that they come back again and again and again, because it's how they are setting themselves up to be, that you're setting yourself up to be successful over the next couple of quarters by taking the time to really think about what is it that you want. And so Emily, one of my clients, was just sharing that the first time she came to the event, she was just there to really learn and listen. Like, we talk about habit strategies. I share anything that I share. I just tell people, like, steal my ideas and just run with it and implement. So she was there just to listen. The second time she was there to really be in the, like, what is right now. Like, so the first time she had no expectations. The second time she knew. And so she was really focused on what can I improve right now. And now this time she's coming because now she sees the bigger picture, and she's coming to plan out all of next year.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Great. And to say a little bit more about, changing your environment, one of the things that does for you is gives you a pattern disrupt. And so it gets your creative mind engaged more fully so that you can come up with ideas that you don't have otherwise.
There's something about the energy of a room when there is other people who are like-minded and who are there to really want to elevate their success. And it energizes the whole room. And I get so many light bulb moments that happen during that time frame. And what it's so much different. Like, I get so many ideas. It's just amazing what happens when you can step away and allow yourself, like, give yourself that permission that it's okay to take 3 days away from, whether it be your home. I mean, because yes, there is travel. If you're coming from out of town, there is travel. It is a commitment. It's a decision to make. But once you make that decision, you're allowing yourself to spend 3 whole days on planning something out. And what's funny is I've had people that don't even have a business yet come to this event, and they, one of the best testimonials that I received from the last event from Tiffany was like, I didn't even have an idea yet for a business, but being there in that environment and having the questions kind of, and some of the answers kind of like pulled right out of her, gave her the energy, the motivation to find some of the ideas of what she wanted to do.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So I know you have the link. Like I said, I would be happy to answer any questions that people have about the event or about tiny habits or about routines. So just tag me and then I'll make sure and come in and answer any questions for your community.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate your time. And always, I think we're so aligned in, this whole idea of baking happiness into your business,
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Right there with you.
Excellent. All right. Ta-ta. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.